Hello and welcome to BioRules video lessons. Today we are going to start studying ecology. So ecology, the name ecos, comes from the ancient Greek for house. So ecology, logy is the study, so knowledge. So ecology is the study of the house, knowing the house. Okay, so basically ecology, we are going to be studying the organisms, their environment, and how they interact with each other. So basically when you study ecology, we are studying from the organism on, from the organism to the group of organisms, and the group of organisms, we end up studying the entire planet Earth. Okay, so essential idea for this beginning of this topic is that it's essential for the survival of living organisms, okay, which include us humans, to have sustainable communities. So this here is one central idea. Sustainable communities are going to be very important for the survival of species, of organisms, including ourselves. Okay, so when we talk about ecology, the one central point is going to be the idea of species. So you probably all know what the species are, but let's take a good look at it, because there are some tricks when we are defining species, and the species is going to be one important unit when we are dealing with ecology and later when we're dealing with evolution. So if I talk to you about a cat, you probably make an image. You have there the image of a cat that comes to your mind. If I think in a lion, which is basically a big cat, you have another image in your mind. And if I put a jaguar, you make this other image over there in your mind. If I tell you that I'm showing you a tiger, then you are going to be making images in your mind. A gepard, the cheetah, okay? All of those are big cats, and they are different cats, they are different species, okay? Even, for example, when you say chimpanzee, you make an image, it's a monkey. And if I tell you about a gorilla, you make another image, it's another monkey. And if I tell you humans, that's another species. Some will say a naked ape, a naked monkey, and that's what we are. So what is a species after all? We make an image of species, but what are they? So, definition: group of organisms that share similar characteristics. So one of the things that's going to be making a species to be a species is that they have similar characteristics that they share among themselves. Okay, the similar is a little bit flexible, because when we know a lot one species, like when you know humans, we can see difference very well. But when we don't know the species very well, then sometimes we don't see many of the difference. All those cats, they look pretty much the same. So sharing similar characteristics is a little bit flexible, but that's one thing that they have. They do share similar characteristics like what we have with these cats here. Those are all cats. They all share similar characteristics. They all have, no, they are not identical, but they are pretty similar. Okay, but that's not what makes a species. That's the beginning. That's the beginning of the definition of species. So species share similar characteristics, and they will have the potential to reproduce. So basically you have one individual with another individual. If they do reproduce and they make little babies, then we are going to be defining that they belong to the same species. This is what's known as the biological concept of species. Okay, BCP, BCS, biological concept of species. Okay, and for the reproduction to be used in this case here, it has to be successful. What does that mean? It's not only a matter of having sex, it's a matter of having sex, producing offsprings successfully. So that brings some questions for us. For example, what about the liger? Tigers and lions, they do reproduce. If they have sex, usually that happens in captivity, because tigers and lions, they don't occupy the same environment. But when they are together there's no other option. Tigers and lions, they may have sex, and when that happens, there is a baby. It's a liger. It's a mixture of the lion and the tiger. Here you have a picture there. A lion on the left, a tiger on the right, and that stuff there is a big lion, which is known as a liger. So if the tiger and the lion are reproducing, so can we tell they are the same species? As a matter of fact, no. Because when the tiger and the lion have sex, they get pregnant, they make a baby, the liger, but the liger is sterile. The liger itself cannot reproduce. So you can only say that a reproduction was successful when the product of that reproduction managed to have its own babies. So if two organisms, they reproduce, but they have sterile offsprings invariably, so they are different species. Okay? The same thing is going to be happening to the mule. The mule is what happens when a horse and a donkey have babies. Horse and donkeys are different species. If they have sex, they have a mule. Oh, so they are not different species. Oh, actually they are, because the mule is sterile. Mules usually are used, by humans because they are as strong as a horse, but they are resistant as a donkey. So that's why people like doing this crossing, to have a very powerful and resistant donkey. Okay, but different species. Horses and donkeys, they have sex, they have a baby, but the baby is sterile. Okay, and as we're talking about that, let's talk about another issue with the biological definition of species. Wolves, coyotes, and dogs. Okay, they share similar characteristics. Okay, of course, not all dogs look like that, but some dogs will look like that. They have similar characteristics. Actually, in some cases, the coyote, the wolf, and some dogs are even difficult for us to tell the difference between them. And what's weird here is that in the case of dogs and coyotes, or coyotes and wolves and dogs having sex, they do reproduce, they make babies, and the baby is not sterile. So in that case, dogs, coyotes, and wolves, although we call them different species, they are not. They are biologically, they are the same species. We call them by different names because usually they don't reproduce. Usually they are kind of separated. When they do meet, usually they don't like each other, so usually there is no sexual reproduction between them. But actually, by the biological definition of species, they are the same species, not a different one, like we do call the wolf as Canis lupus, the coyote as Canis ladris, and the dog as Canis familiaris. They should all be one species. Okay? Other problems with the definition of species: asexual reproduction. So if we call species group of organisms that share similar characteristics and have the potential to reproduce between themselves, what would you say about species that don't reproduce between themselves, that reproduce by asexual reproduction? Very common in bacteria, very common in some unicellular organisms like the amoebas and so on. Even some vertebrates, they have asexual reproduction. There are lizards that there are only females and they reproduce asexually. So in that case, a little bit difficult for us to define, are they from the same species, are they from different species? So this becomes a little bit of a gray area in the definition of species. So in the case of the bacteria, we will end up saying that they are the same species because they have very much, many similar characteristics. And nowadays we can even say they have genetics characteristics that are the same, similar, and they are different from other groups. Okay? Another problem with the definition of species is this salamander over here. These salamanders that you see over there, they share similar characteristics, but they are quite different from each other. Each of these species over here, so each of this that we see around, like this here and this here, they are from the same species because although they are quite different, where they meet, they have a baby and the baby is fertile. And where these here two meet over here in this area, they may have fertile offspring. So this here, the same. So they are all subspecies, but if they meet, they do reproduce. However, if the extreme on the distribution, this here, meets with that one over there, so if we make this crossing over there, at that place, they don't reproduce. So in that case, we have organisms that reproduce with other organisms that reproduce with another one, another one. So they are the same species. But if I get the extreme, they don't reproduce. So basically here, they are all reproduce with each other. So they are the same species, or no, they are subspecies. But in some point where they meet, if they become so different from each other that they don't reproduce anymore. In that case, we are going to say that it looks like they are from the same species, as each one reproduces with the neighbor, but they don't reproduce with the very one far away. This here is what we call a ring species. Ring species are this. They are species that are composed by several subspecies, that's one cross with the other, although some of them might not be able anymore to reproduce. So actually this one over here and that one over there, they are already very far away from each other. They would be different species if there were not a gradient in the middle between them. So this is the definition of ring species. Okay, so now there is a quiz over here. You can use a cell phone to read this QR code to open a series of questions to check out to see if you got the idea of ecology definition and also the definition of species. Have fun.